Hey, what's up? My name is DJ, and I've got a simple, easy thing that you can do to be happier and have an impact on the world. It's small talk. Yeah, just like what you do with your friends when you're out after work or after school and you go and you hang out at the coffee shop and you talk about whatever was on the news that day, whatever TV shows and movies you just watched, and maybe like someone's got a new sweater and you're like, oh, that's an awesome new sweater, like where'd you get it? And then someone else just went on a date or they've got a crush on someone, and so you like go into all what happened on the date and it's really exciting. That small talk right there. Because think about how much that small talk reflects what we care about in our culture. The things that we talk about with our friends, the things that we make small talk about, are the things that we wind up focusing on in life. They're the things that we reflect on. When you talk about something with your friends, that's a lot of really important time that you're spending really understanding something, really understanding kind of what you're trying to do in your life. And if you direct that, if you take hold of what you're talking about with your friends and you really think, what topic of conversation could actually make me happier, could actually have an impact on the world, then it could be pretty powerful. Let's go back to the things I talked about, right? Talking about the news. A lot of times when we talk about the news, we'll talk about what's on CNN, we'll talk about what's in the New York Times, like my friends and I will talk about national news. And national news is good to talk about, but it's also remote. Like, I can't have an impact on most national news stories, and they don't really have a direct impact on me. If some celebrity has just gone through a new scandal, or if there's some big, even if there's some big crisis somewhere, unless I can actually do something about it, it's good to know, but it's not really that relevant to my life. What's usually more relevant is local news, because local news you can do something about. If there's a local piece of legislation moving through your city hall, you can go down there, you can talk to the supervisors, and you can have an impact on it. If there's something going on with the local schools, you can have an impact on that. And so the most important news to talk about, I would say, is the news that you could potentially either might impact a decision you're going to make, or that you could have an impact on. So if you see a news story, even if it's a national news story that you think you and your friends could impact, maybe that's the news you should be talking about. If you talk about movies or TV shows, you're really talking about entertainment, which is good because entertainment is fun. But it's a lot more powerful to talk about the entertainment that you and your friends make. It's one thing to go to a fun movie. It's another thing to make a movie. And there's something really deep, something spiritual and powerful about reflecting and kind of celebrating our ability as people to be creative. So instead of talking about movies and TV shows, maybe ask your friends what they're doing to be creative. Like, do they draw? Do they play an instrument? Do they remix YouTube videos? What do they do? And if they don't do anything, then maybe they should think about that. Maybe you should be like, so what kind of creativity would you like to do? Because if you don't have creativity in your life, like, you're missing out on something that's pretty big and pretty important. And maybe that's a more powerful discussion you have. And then you can, when you small talk, it can be about like the art that you're making instead of just the art that you're receiving. And then the last thing was the stuff that you buy. And, or not the last thing, but the next thing was the stuff you buy, like that sweater, right? And it's interesting because in our culture, which is kind of a consumer culture, you talk about buying stuff, but you don't really talk about owning stuff. There's been this cultural thing where like it's a big deal to acquire something, but once you have it, you just kind of take it back to your house and you put it on a pile of all of the other stuff in your house, and you go out and you try to buy something new. And that's not really good for anyone, right? It's not good for the people making the stuff. It's not good for you because you're not happier and all your money is spent and you're racked up in credit card debt. And it's super not good for the environment. And it's not good for our kids and for our grandkids. And so maybe instead of talking about the stuff you just bought, it might be interesting to talk about the stuff you already own. And go back and think through your closet and be like, that sweater that you got last year, what are you doing with it? Do you want to donate it? Maybe it would be useful to someone else. Have you ever worn it? Like, is there something new you could do with it? Could maybe you like cut it up and put some patches on it and make it kind of a steampunk thing and have it be one of your creative projects? What about maybe you've got like an old juice machine you never use, that one of those things that turns anything into juice, and maybe one of your friends would want to borrow it. So rather talking about the stuff that you want to buy, maybe talk about the stuff that you already have and what you can do with the stuff that you already have. And maybe there are new ways that the stuff you already have can either make you happy or make someone else happy that you haven't discovered, that you could discover by talking about it with your friends. And the last thing is, and this is not bad, right? Talking about relationships, right? Like when you just went on a date, when you just got a crush on someone, that's always kind of good to talk about, especially if it's not one of you, but it's someone else in the room and you get to just totally gossip about it. Like, that's really fun. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But another thing that's powerful, rather than just focusing on romantic relationships, talk about community. It's always kind of been mysterious to me how we make a really big deal about forming romantic partnerships with someone, but we don't make an equally big deal about community building. Communities are just as important to our happiness as people, as romantic relationships are. And they're just as fun to form. And it's just as hard to form them, right? There's just as many twists and turns and complexities and like fun little dramas to tease out and stuff in community building. And they're just as powerful. It feels just as powerful to build a community as it does to fall in love with someone. And so if you talk about community building with your friends, you ask them, you know, what's up with their community? What's up not just with the people that they're interested in, but like with the overall picture of all of the relationships that are in their life that are keeping them in balance. And you talk about that with yourself. Maybe it would be good to spend some time reflecting on that. And maybe it would be good to spend some time thinking about how that community could get richer and get deeper. And that's kind of cool because when you talk about that with your friends, you're talking about that with the people that can make it happen. You're talking about that with people who are in your community. And you and them can get together and maybe do some other things to build and tighten the community that all of you are part of. So next time you meet up at a coffee shop and you're just hanging out and you're talking about with your friends about whatever, remember that the whatever you talk about matters. That determines where your life is going. That reflects what your priorities are as a person. So even if you don't do all of this stuff that I just suggested, sit back and think about what those topics of conversation are and think about what that says about you and about your friends and think about what it could say. Thanks.